The CEO walks up to the microphone, looks straight into the camera, and tells you AI is coming for your job. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And you believe him. Why wouldn't you? He built the thing. Here's what he doesn't tell you. His stock just went up. This is the part that gets buried. The AI doom narrative. The one saturating every headline, every podcast, every keynote, comes predominantly from the same CEOs who raised billions in venture capital without the returns to justify it. They needed a story, not a profit report. A story. And the most effective story they could tell wasn't "we built something useful." It was "we built something so powerful it should terrify you." Your fear is the proof of concept. Scott Galloway put it plainly. These executives are selling a freedom narrative, AI as the great liberator, while making billions off the mass anxiety of workers who believe they're about to be replaced. The panic isn't a side effect. It's the product. Critics have gone further, arguing AI fear-mongering serves one specific financial function. It moves stock prices, exaggerate the technology's power, and investors act before the revenue ever materializes. So who exactly is manufacturing this fear? And how does the machine actually work? Here's who manufactures the fear. Fortune spent months analyzing AI executive communications, earnings calls, investor letters, keynote speeches, and what they found was almost too cynical to believe. The loudest doomsday warnings were coming disproportionately from the same CEOs sitting on massive VC checks they couldn't justify. Not because the apocalypse is coming, because fear is a better metric than revenue when you don't have a revenue. You tell investors the stakes are civilizational, and suddenly the ROI question seems almost rude to ask. It's not a warning. It's a substitute for a balance sheet. And then there's the AI safety movement, which sounds noble. But critics, including some inside the industry, say it's been quietly weaponized. When you argue that AI poses existential risk, and only the most sophisticated, well-funded labs can be trusted to handle it responsibly, you've just made the barrier to entry impossibly high. You've handed the market to the handful of companies already in it. Meanwhile, consumers are caught in a paradox. 65% say they trust AI. 79% say they want more transparency about it. That gap between trust and anxiety is exactly the space fear merchants live in. It doesn't get resolved. It gets monetized, and it's only getting louder. The Atlantic reported in 2025 that the AI industry is experiencing full-scale ideological radicalization. Believers and skeptics both escalating toward the most extreme version of their position. Nobody's cooling down, because alarm is the commodity. Comp doesn't convert. But while chatbot companies fight for headlines with doomsday narratives, a completely different industry is quietly printing money, and almost nobody is talking about it. The industry quietly printing money isn't building chatbots. It's selling the shovels. Oracle's AI data center revenue hit $5.8 billion in a single quarter. One quarter. That number nearly doubled year over year. Oracle doesn't write the AI that's supposedly going to replace your job. They build the rooms it lives in, and they charge rent on every square foot. Now consider NVIDIA, the company that controls the physical backbone of the entire AI industry, originally made chips for video games. Seriously, by the time researchers realized gaming GPUs were actually the critical bottleneck for training neural networks, Jensen Huang had already tattooed the company logo on his shoulder. Accidental infrastructure. $1 trillion tattoo. Below that, there's a whole invisible layer nobody talks about. Data labeling companies paid to manually clean millions of training samples. Compliance auditors who verify AI outputs don't violate regulations. Middleware providers sitting between your company's software and the model itself. None of them make headlines. None of them give speeches about existential risk. They just send invoices and get paid whether the AI works or not. Meanwhile, the AI companies you actually recognize are still net money losers. The capital investment is enormous. The hardware depreciates in years, not decades, so they keep reinvesting just to stay current. The infrastructure layer is already cashing out. The chatbot companies are paying them to do it. That's the shovel seller thesis, and it's held in every gold rush in history. The merchants win, not the miners. But some of the biggest investors alive have already read that same pattern. And they're not just buying shovels anymore. They're buying direct minds. The smartest money right now isn't betting on AI winning. It's betting on the wreckage. Jeff Bezos is worth over $200 billion. He doesn't need to gamble. He needs to know which side of the bet actually wins. In February 2026, the Financial Times reported Bezos was building something called Project Prometheus, a $30 billion vehicle. Not to build AI, to buy the company's AI is supposedly destroying. Active talks with Abu Dhabi and JP Morgan. He's in a market for industrial businesses the disruption wave is about to hit. Think about what that means. The man publicly warning you about AI transformation, who has every incentive to keep you worried about what's coming, is personally betting on the wreckage. He's not building for the AI future. He's buying the companies you're scared AI will leave behind. Disruption is the product. Fear of it is what he's selling to sovereign wealth funds. And here's where it gets weird. 44% of companies say they're seeing actual revenue growth from AI. That number gets cited everywhere. But the same research shows most enterprises can't actually deliver ROI. Not because the tech doesn't work, but because their data is a mess and nobody inside the organization has the skills to use it. The headline and the reality are pulling in opposite directions. So the richest man alive isn't investing in AI succeeding. He's investing in the chaos it leaves. And that's not crazy. That might be the sharpest read of this whole story. Which forces the most uncomfortable question of all. If the smartest investors alive are betting on destruction, what do the actual numbers say about whether AI is delivering anything at all? The actual numbers? Not great. Economists who've modeled this, actual economists, not tech bloggers, project annual productivity growth from AI somewhere between 0.05 and 0.07% per year. For context, that's not the Industrial Revolution. That's roughly the boost spreadsheets gave us in the 1980s. Not steam engines, not the printing press. The economic equivalent of Microsoft Excel finally working a little better. Trillions of dollars are going into this technology. The projected economic return, according to economists who model these things, is on par with getting better at spreadsheets. That gap between the capital flowing in and the output coming out is one of the stranger facts in modern finance. Howard Marks noticed. He runs Oaktree Capital, one of the largest investment firms on earth. This is a man who has made billions reading balance sheets. He's not naturally a skeptic, but what he found when he looked at how AI companies were counting their revenue alarmed him enough to go public. He called it circular financing. Microsoft invests in OpenAI. OpenAI buys computing from Microsoft Azure. The money leaves one hand, arrives in the other, and gets counted as revenue on both ends. Run this loop across a dozen AI companies, and the sector looks like it's printing money. It isn't. One investigation described the AI industry as, direct quote, pumped full of theoretical deals, obfuscations of revenues, promises that never lead anywhere, and mysterious hundreds of millions that never appear. This isn't someone on Twitter. This is someone who went through the actual contracts. And companies buying AI can't make it work. Not because the technology is broken, but because their own data infrastructure is a disaster, their strategy doesn't exist, and nobody inside has the skills to use the tools they're already paying for. The AI is ready. The organizations aren't. So if the economics don't add up, and at this point the numbers make that clear, what do the people actually building this technology know that they're not telling you? Howard Marks knows. One of the most respected investors alive, the guy behind Oaktree Capital, the one whose memos get forwarded around Wall Street like contraband. He sat down with an AI and asked it to explain its own evolution, what it showed him about autonomous agents, and the way money actually moves between AI companies alarmed him enough that he published a public warning in early 2026. He called it a $1 trillion illusion. The circular financing piece is the one that should stop you cold. AI companies paying each other with investor money. Revenue figures that look completely real on a spreadsheet, but are essentially the same dollar bouncing between balance sheets. Marx didn't call it fraud. He called it something more dangerous. A self-reinforcing belief system that mistakes paper transactions for proof that any of this is actually working. Meanwhile, at BBVA, one of Europe's largest banks, Thousands of employees were caught using consumer AI tools without authorization. No security review, no IT clearance, just people doing their jobs and quietly reaching for whatever worked. Management's response? They didn't fire anyone. They treated it as a hidden demand signal, built a competitive internal AI environment, and let expert users spread it peer to peer across the organization. Full enterprise adoption without a single top-down mandate. And then there are the engineers, the people actually building frontier models. Futurism reported in December 2025 that many of them are privately paralyzed, not performing caution for a Senate hearing, actually scared, living every day with what they're building and genuinely not knowing where it leads. Here's the irony that pulls all of this together. The same executives giving interviews about responsible AI, safe development, protecting workers behind closed doors, they're as uncertain and anxious as the factory workers and truck drivers and radiologists they keep telling you are about to lose everything. The difference is one thing. The executives have equity. The workers get to think peace about res killing. So now that you know who profits from the fear, what does that actually mean for you? Every time you see a doom headline, ask a benefits. Is that CEO raising a round? Is that researcher at a company that needs regulation to block its competitors? Because fear is a financial instrument. Full stop. Knowing that doesn't mean AI isn't real or that the risks don't exist. It means you now have a calibration tool you didn't have before. The gap between 79% of people demanding AI transparency and 65% trusting AI anyway. That's exactly where the industry lives. They don't need you scared forever. They just need you scared long enough to click, subscribe, or sign a check. So the next time someone tells you AI will destroy everything, ask yourself what they're selling. If this changed how you read AI headlines, drop that in the comments. I'll be reading them.